heard a goddamn word I was saying. What the hell is happening? So, all right, where were we? We're back at the beginning. I'm Matt the Rat. Welcome to Hal Sparks Mega Worldwide. Hal will be out in just a few moments to deal with you knuckleheads. Listen, how come none of you are subscribe? What's wrong with you? You come over here, you steal the ideas you hear, and then you pass them off as your own, and you don't have, maybe you try to eliminate the paper trail. Is that what you're doing? I think that's what you're doing. Anyways, try it. Subscribe. Don't be afraid. Help us all out here. Now, can we get on with the goddamn show, please? Huh? Buddy, hey, where are you? I'll go find him. I'm over here. What are you talking about? All right, much better. Welcome to the show, etc., etc. So much. Why is there always such a monkey wrench thrown into the show? It's Hal Sparks Mega Worldwide. Like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show. We'll just cut the top at the beginning. We'll just lots has been happening. I will be able to tell you guys in short order what's going on, but it's a lot. Lot has happened since we spoke this morning. Lot of craziness going around, but my lips are sealed. That's all I can say. But I can say hello to the chat room. Now you guys are there, and excellent. Now, yes, he's a New York rat. I pay him in pizza. That's how it works. Hi, everybody. Rat Sparks. Nope. Although, not a bad name. It's Matt the Rat. Way too quiet. Volume up. Okay, check. We'll bring this volume up. Yes. How about that? Is that a little better? That seems very loud. That seems like it's too much. Too hot, lady. It's too hot. But
Captain's log.
Okay, at least that works. Now, so much going on. We will get to it. Clips galore. Hello, Andrea. Hello, CSL. Hi, Mark. Also, and Mark, and the other Mark. There's so much stupid today. We're not going to be able to cover all of it. Can I just do something right out of the gate, though? I've shown this guy once before. David Schweikert. Schweikert, ladies and gentlemen. David Schweikert is Mike Johnson's, I was about to say his right-hand man, but I'm fairly certain if I said that, it would set off his porn app and embarrass him and his kid. So, Schweikert is the Deputy Secretary of Bad News. That's who this guy is. Let me show you who he is. Some of you might be familiar with this fella coming out here. Let me show you this guy again. This is the guy, not him. Hold on. Let's go into here. I'll skip forward. This guy, that's him. So he gets recognized because he's very popular around there. Let me tell you something. You know how we hate Donald Trump's nunty face? You know how you feel and you see him and you're like, ugh, dude was friends with Jeffrey Epstein for a quarter century. Yuck. Gross. Ick. What a terrible man. Why do I have to look at his stupid face? Okay. Very upsetting. I understand that feeling. I put it aside because I have to for work. You know, it's kind of like being a nurse or a doctor or a coroner. You can't really be squeamish. You know what I mean? But that's how Republicans feel when this guy shows up. This guy is a Republican. He works with the Republicans, and he's the guy who has to give them the bad news about Trump's stupid fucking tax cut and how it's the worst thing you could do right now. And let me just tell you, you know how I was saying, like, you give Republicans enough responsibility and make them genuinely on the hook for what happens, they start to sound like Democrats all of a sudden. Check this out.
Have you ever had...
Oh, wait, why am I not hearing his audio? That's terrible. Oh, because it's not... Yeah, I went that. Here we go. Here you go.
The time here where you basically are having to take on two things that push against each other, that create a real math problem, and that telling the truth about it, how do you say, oh yeah, it gets the crap kicked out of you, but let's have at it.
Okay, what he's talking about is the fact that Donald Trump ran as Santa Claus and has to govern as the Grinch. I got to tell you, by the end of this, Trump is going to wish Harris had won, if he doesn't already.
President Trump stood there just a couple days ago, and within his speech, when you talk about some of the policy to help our brothers and sisters in this country, there was the discussion of no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, these things, and the pushing to get us in Congress, Senate included, to move the extension of the 2017 tax cuts.
Yeah. How many people think that that's a problem? Not for Democrats who are against it for a myriad of reasons, but look at his hands. Look at his body posture. Look at his closed eyes and his kind of tilted head. And this is not, when you clench your hands like that, you're not excited to say what you're about to say. Look, like I'm worried. Look how, like, I have to squeeze. To turn my fingers that red, I have to squeeze really fucking hard. Look at the ends of his fingers. If he doesn't clip his nails, he would cut right through the backs of his hands and slice them off like Wolverine.
And I'm going to show you why that's so important. But at the same time, within almost the same breath,
I'm going to also point out that I'm alone. And no one is here to listen to me say these things. And the only people I could appeal to are Democrats, and they want me to go fuck myself because we dug this hole and now we're asking for a ladder.
the president looked out at us and said he also wants a balanced budget. Okay. Now we need to deal with the reality of how hard that math is, but there's a way to do it.
Oh, yeah, there definitely is a way to do it. If you want to shrink the military to the size of Italy's, I guess, for the time being, for the next 10 years.
I just don't know if intellectually, when you think about the things you heard behind these microphones this last week, how many of our brothers and sisters here, how many of the public, how many of the armies of lobbyists that are in the hallways here lined up saying they want more spending, more money, more regulation on their competition? So let's go through some of the basic math facts, and then let's have a brutally honest conversation of how we stabilize and how far we can actually go. All right.
Very exciting. So he's not talking to us. He's not talking to you, Democrats. He's not talking to people on our side of the aisle at all. He's talking to Republicans who hate his guts and wish he would shut up and stop doing his little displays on the floor of the House.
An oldie but a goodie.
This is fun. Watch this.
And the numbers are actually worse, but I didn't want to print another chart, so we've been using the same one for last year. Do you see all the red in the chart? That's what we call mandatory. It's auto, it's earned benefits, it's you served in the military, your pensions, those things. Interest is automatic. You got to pay it. See the blue? That's military and what we call non-defense discretionary. A member of Congress, other than in a reconciliation opportunity, we're going to come back why it's so important, only votes on this blue.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Look at the size of the dial. And they only vote on the blue part. Now, remember that when you hear Elon Musk wants to cut $1 trillion out of the budget.
Every dime a member of Congress votes on, other than that moment of reconciliation, is borrowed. It's all borrowed money. Last year, for every dollar we took in tax receipts, we borrowed $1.39. And look, the number of times I've come before here, these.
I don't think that's the case. I think we borrowed 39 cents. I think it was $1 to 39 because it's 7. We took in $5-something trillion in receipts, and the budget was 7. That if that was the case, you'd for the 5 trillion you took in, you would borrow whatever, I don't know, nearly $8 trillion.
And I've done the charts and shown, in times when we've had very high marginal tax rates, we take in about 17, 18% of GDP in taxes. When we've had very low marginal tax rates, we take in about 17, 18% of GDP. And it's the seesaw of lower marginal tax rates, economy grows, higher marginal tax rates, economy shrinks. We're getting basically the same percentage of the economy in tax receipts. There's an article on the Manhattan Institute.
But also when you have to pay the actual amount out, the higher the taxes, the more money you draw in. It's not about percentages at that point. This is where he's doing a little bit of flim-flam, I would like to say, for the record, because if you're taking in much higher receipts, then you can spend more on fixing things. So you're taking that money and you're that 17% zone that they're spending. If you have more of it, you can spend it to pay down the debt, in theory.
Website that does an aggregation of lots of
By the way, they don't, but
studies, many of them from left-wing groups, showing that if you raised every tax that functionally the Dems have offered that's gotten scored, and then you adjust it for its economic effects, you get about 1.5% of GDP in taxes, or additional taxes. Okay. The cuts we had been talking about were now actually getting much broader. But let's go back to that 1.5. We're going to borrow 7.25% of the entire U.S. economy this year will be borrowed. So when the president turned to us and says he really wants a balanced budget, that's a tough one.
Yeah, it's called bullshit.
His Treasury Secretary has talked about if we could get down to 3% stability. Ray Dalio, who's on talking about a book he's giving away about his incredible fear of the squeeze that's happening around the world because the countries in the world are binging on debt.
Yeah, no, Ray Dalio is actually a big fan of Chinese growth, and he got fucked in that because it totally went south. And he hasn't recovered from that. And so he's trying to tell a different story, how it's not that his bet on China sucked, it's that the whole world sucks, and it's just part of it.
And that there may be a shortage of...
Like, we fucked up the world, so his Chinese bet went south. That's Ray Dalio's idea. And Tommy Bilyeu and all these other assholes have on Ray Dalio and still talk to him like he knows what he's talking about, largely because I think he's a billionaire and he's made money in hedge funds and that kind of shit, like going against the tide of the economy and betting against it or whatever. So, look, if your only metric is found a way to become a billionaire while slowly destroying everything that you believe in and ultimately losing that money, more than likely, I don't know how to talk to you about what true success is.
Borrowable capital, which will cause us, as he says, a heart attack, says if we could get back to 3% of the size of the economy. Okay, maybe that should be our goal. But once again, remember, your government is functionally an insurance company with an army. Because
he means functionally. Your government is functionally an insurance company with an army. That's how they view Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid as insurance. That's what we're doing right now. Keeping stupid people alive.
Vast majority of our spending, the vast majority, are things like...
Well, not all stupid. Weak. They perceive them as weak.
Social Security, Medicare, other benefits you either get because you hit a certain age, you worked a certain number of quarters, you fell below a certain income, you're part of a certain tribal group, but they're automatic. And the one time we get an honest opportunity to really look at them is when there's this reconciliation, you're able to open up and look at the formula spendings. So let's actually walk through, for someone like...
He does this every time, by the way.
Myself.
There's one part of this I want to show you. We're not going to watch the whole thing. There's one part of this. I want you to see what he says to everybody who's against, that is calling out the fact that the Republicans who are talking about a balanced budget or fiscal responsibility or the debt, all this clamor about this, none of them actually give a fuck about it. And he is asking for help with this from Democrats and anybody sensible left in the government that hasn't been driven to the margins by the maggots.
Who basically is intellectually whipsawing him, just beating the crap out of myself. I do not want, and I believe it would be a horrible thing, to allow taxes to go up at the end of this year, particularly on small businesses and the working population. This is the average. And understand, I represent the Phoenix Scottsdale area. For my folks, our math is
it's also a cheat, by the way. This is if the Trump tax cuts, that's what they're talking about. This is the average tax hike per taxpayer. Who thinks that the average person who pays taxes is going to see the majority of this? The average is weighted way against all the people in the upper 1%, upper 10%, upper 20% that will be paying a lot more, maybe $10,000, $15,000 each, maybe even more, maybe 50. And then you average it out to the people who pay taxes in the middle, and it gets closer to this. The number isn't weighted heavily by people below a certain line because poor people don't pay any income taxes. It's weighted very heavily by the small number who will pay a lot on the top end. Okay?
$3,300, almost $3,400 a year. A year for my average family in tax hikes. But for the country, it's $2,850 is the tax hike that's already in the law. That's already what's coming at you.
Right. Average. But the average amount is not for the average taxpayer.
That's what the Democrats have been arguing, saying we shouldn't extend these tax cuts. And then they give these beautiful speeches about defending the working class. This is coming to you. This is part of the battle. And understand, those tax hikes aren't just going on rich people. 62% of the tax-paying population actually sees their taxes go up. And I'm going to show you some distributional charts later.
Yeah, okay. This is the part where he plays funny money with the numbers because he's operating in percentages instead of going, oh, see these people, their taxes are going up $100,000. Your taxes are going up $35. Therefore, everybody's getting hit with $3,000.
Remember, after 2017, we actually made the tax code in the United States more progressive, meaning the higher income, we're paying a higher percentage of the federal income tax. But what we also did is we functionally took half of our brothers and sisters who make much more moderate wages, and we pulled them off the tax system. They're not paying, now they're still paying payroll tax, which is your Social Security, your Medicare, your unemployment, your disability. But those you're paying as sort of your...
Yeah, you stupid middle class people who are not pulling your fair share.
Retirement account, think of it that way. But they pay almost no income tax. And we're mostly going to focus on these charts about the income tax side. Mm-hmm. So just once again...
Because you hate it and he thinks... The problem is Trump thinks tariffs are going to solve this whole...
Remember, this is...
Okay, now let me jump forward because there's at one point he's he goes through all these problems they have and they're like, this is a speech he's given multiple times. And you could tell by his body language that this is on record. Here you go. Hold on. And this is one of the ones that he holds up. Yeah.
This year. So when idiots like me hold up charts like this and I get complaints saying, you're hurting my feelings. The fact of the matter is, this is why we got to thread this needle and do really hard things. How do we extend the tax cuts, the tax reforms, the tax benefits, the baseline economic growth of what we accomplished in 2017, but find ways to offset as much of it as we possibly can.
Yeah, you can't do that because that's all red states. Now, people are like, you can't do that. And then he goes, help us.
Once again, even CBO and some of the outside studies made it very clear. If you offset the spending, so that money stays in the economy instead of being borrowed by government here. By it staying in the economy, you maximize your economic growth because it gets lent to this business. It gets lent to this new construction project. When we take it out of the economy.
By the way, Infrastructure Act, Chips and Science Act, the rescue package, these are all things he's talking about. When you take that money and you don't, it doesn't leave the economy, it circulates in and builds wealth when you do those kind of things. Unlike tax cuts, which fucking evaporate that money.
Remember, our baseline, we're already borrowing $22 trillion over the next 10 years. How many more trillion should we stack on top of that? And if we don't find offsets, it means we doubled U.S. publicly held debt in 10 years. 240 years, and then we double it again in 10. And this is how insane the chart looks from the people running around this place saying, just use current policy because it's easy and I don't have to say no to the army of people sitting in my office wanting money for whatever their cause is.
By the way, he's talking about Republicans bitching at him. He doesn't give a shit about the Democrats that are saying that. No Democrat is walking up to him saying this.
You do realize when you start looking at this stuff, you're talking about 140, 150+% of debt to GDP. So you go from 100 today to almost a 50% increase in the next 10 years. It's uncomfortable. Primary driver of U.S. sovereign debt, interest, and healthcare costs. Now, are you all ready for if we were to do, the people that run around here just want to pretend the law doesn't exist and that if we're already doing it, we should just pretend, look the other way and just keep doing it. If we do that, that means in 9 budget years, interest, just the interest, and this was assuming the interest rates from like last December, we spend over $2 trillion a year in interest. So when you hear members from the different committees around here, how hard this is, how difficult it is.
He's talking about Republicans.
The Democrats are saying, how dare you talk about these benefits? Help us.
Aww.
Where's your creativity? Where's your modernization? Where's the use of technology to disrupt the cost but make it better, faster, cheaper? Help us.
That's it. So that's what I wanted to show you guys in, Boo Fuckity Who, episode 75. That's what it's brought him to, is that this is a guy, when he's talking about who's like treating him like shit and yelling, and he's whipsawing emotionally and psychologically back and forth about all these things. And it's a pain, and, like he gets yelled at and everybody says they're hurting he's hurting their feelings. He's talking about Republicans. He's talking about maggots. He's not talking about Democrats. And when he finally gets around to Democrats who are like, you're removing benefits from people who deserve them. You're hurting the least among us to fix this hole. And it's your fucking fault. It's your president. You have the House. You have the Senate. You ran on this stuff. So prove to everybody that your system works. If he ran on tariffs are going to patch the hole caused by his tax cut, then you have a responsibility to, I guess, let it fly. Don't try to put the fucking toothpaste back in the tube or the genie back in the bottle and ask Democrats to help you crowbar it back in. You guys run on this idea. We can cut taxes, raise tariffs, and that's going to make us fiscally responsible, and we're going to bring down the debt and all this. Trump is selling this. You don't get to say this to everybody in every fucking meeting and then have this poor sap come out by him fucking self on the House floor and give the bad news to his party that Trump has been bullshitting everyone, and that bullshit is never going to stop. And none of the ideas are right. It's not going to work. They know it. You can do the math. I don't feel bad for that dude, David Schweikert, but I don't want to hear him bitch about stuff either. Like, tough shit, dude.